Parliament is a legislative body, generally found in democratic governments, that represents the people and is responsible for making laws and overseeing the government. It's a key part of the political system, acting as a check on the executive branch and ensuring the government is accountable to the citizens. In modern politics and history, a parliament is a legislative body of government. Generally, a modern parliament has three functions: representing the electorate, making laws, and overseeing the government via hearings and inquiries. The term is similar to the idea of a Senate, Synod, or Congress and is commonly used in countries that are current or former monarchies. Some contexts restrict the use of the word parliament to parliamentary systems, although it is also used to describe the legislature in some presidential systems, example the Parliament of Ghana, even where it is not in the official name. Historically, parliaments included various kinds of deliberative, consultative, and judicial assemblies. What is considered to be the first modern parliament was the Cortes of Leon, held in the Kingdom of Leon in 1188. According to the UNESCO, the Decreta of Leon of 1188 is the oldest documentary manifestation of the European parliamentary system. In addition, UNESCO granted the 1188 Cortes of Alfonso IX the title of Memory of the World, and the city of Leon has been recognized as the cradle of parliamentarism. In some countries, Great Britain for example, the group of people who make the laws is called the Parliament. It's the equivalent of Congress in the United States. The most common meaning of parliament refers to a country's legislative, lawmaking, body. England's parliament is very famous. The word comes in part from the French verb parler, which means to speak, which makes sense since this group of people assemble to talk about laws and issues. Another meaning of parliament is the card game known as fan 10 or sevens, where you lead with your sevens in a certain sequence and win by using up all your cards. Parliament is the legislative or lawmaking body, responsible for debating, amending, and passing laws. At the federal level, it is comprised of the monarch, represented by the Governor-General, the appointed Senate and the elected House of Commons. At the provincial level, Parliament refers to the monarch, represented by the Lieutenant Governor, and the elected Legislative Assembly. Parliament has a responsibility to hold the government accountable. In democratic countries such as South Africa, the legislature or parliament plays a very important role. The members of parliament are elected to represent the people of the country. They also act as the voice of the people. Parliament, therefore, is accountable to the people of South Africa. Every 5 years the people of South Africa get an opportunity to cast their votes for a new parliament. Each new parliament is numbered. For example, in the elections of 1994 people voted for the first parliament. The second parliament came into existence after the general elections in 1999 and the third parliament in 2004. Parliament consists of two houses called the National Assembly and National Council of Provinces. Each house has its own distinct role and functions, as set out in the Constitution. However, there are many instances when the two houses act together to conduct what is called joint business. In the national sphere of government, the legislative power of the Republic is vested in Parliament. In other words, Parliament is responsible for making and passing laws. The National Assembly also chooses the President and is a national forum where issues are debated publicly. The Assembly also has to scrutinize and oversee the actions of the executive. The National Council of Provinces, on the other hand, must ensure that provincial interests are taken into account in the national sphere of government. It does that by taking part in the lawmaking process and by being the forum where issues affecting the provinces are debated publicly. Members of Parliament have freedom of speech, subject only to the rules of the Houses, when they participate in committees or debates. They have that right to ensure that they, as elected public representatives, can bring important matters to the attention of the Houses and the public. To protect this right, members enjoy certain privileges and protection in terms of an Act of Parliament called the Powers, Privileges, and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, 2004. Furthermore, the importance of the public in the work of Parliament is emphasized by the fact that the Constitution instructs Parliament to facilitate public participation in the lawmaking process and to take reasonable measures for public access to its committee meetings and House sittings. Another important power given to Parliament by the Constitution is the authority to make its own rules and orders and to direct its own internal proceedings. Each House therefore has a set of rules and orders according to which it operates, while Parliament also has joint rules that directs joint business. The Speaker is the principal office holder in the House of Representatives. They are the House's representative or spokesman and chair its meetings. The Speaker is elected from among the 150 members of the House and is usually a person of considerable parliamentary experience. The Speaker also performs a role similar to that of a minister in relation to a government department, and oversees the administration of the department of the House of Representatives. Electing a Speaker is the first thing that the House does when it meets for the first time after a general election. The Speaker makes sure that members obey the rules, standing orders, of the House and follow the correct procedures. The Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Senate together are known as the Parliament's presiding officers. They jointly have responsibility for the provision of services to the Parliament by the Department of Parliamentary Services. The Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives is Ms. Sharon Clayton MP, member for Newcastle, New South Wales. She was first elected as Deputy Speaker on July 26, 2022. If the Speaker is absent, the Deputy Speaker becomes the acting Speaker. The Deputy Speaker takes the chair of the Federation Chamber. The second Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives is Mr. Ian Goodenough MP, member for Moore, Western Australia. He was first elected on July 26, 2022. If the Speaker is absent, the Deputy Speaker becomes the acting Speaker and the second Deputy Speaker the acting Deputy Speaker. If both the Speaker and Deputy Speaker are absent, the second Deputy Speaker becomes acting Speaker. A bicameral parliament consisting of two chambers, the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate. Parliament is made up of two houses, the National Assembly, NA, and the National Council of Provinces, NCOP, whose members are elected by the people of South Africa. Each house has its own distinct functions and powers. The National Assembly is responsible for choosing the President, passing laws, ensuring that the members of the executive perform their work properly and providing a forum where the representatives of the people can publicly debate issues. The Speaker is the head and spokesperson of the National Assembly. The National Council of Provinces is also involved in the lawmaking process and provides a forum for debate on issues affecting the provinces. Its main focus is to ensure that provincial interests are taken into account in the national sphere of government. The chairperson of the National Council of Provinces is the head of and spokesperson for that house. One of Parliament's most important roles is to approve the government's budget for providing services to the people of South Africa. The budget is introduced in the National Assembly by the Minister of Finance, whereafter the Houses proceed to discuss the money to be allocated for each separate government department. At the end of this process, Parliament approves the budget. Its duty is to ensure that public funds are spent on improving the quality of life of all South Africans. Core objectives of Parliament. The 1994 elections ushered in a new democratic order in South Africa. The extraordinary participation by South Africans showed that we desired to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. The process of negotiations, which preceded the 1994 elections, resulted in the drafting of a new constitution, as adopted on May 8, 1996 by the Constitutional Assembly. The Constitution was adopted as the supreme law of the Republic and lays the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by law. It stipulates the values and mechanisms for governance of our unique people-centered democracy. The Constitution sets a single, sovereign democratic state where governance is effected through Parliament, the executive, and the judiciary. In the Republic, the legislative authority is vested in Parliament, the executive authority is vested in the President, and the judicial authority is vested in the courts. Parliament's role and ultimate outcome is to represent the people and ensure government by the people under the Constitution, as well as represent the provinces in the national sphere of government. This mandate of Parliament is achieved through passing legislation, overseeing government action, and the facilitating of public involvement, cooperative government, and international participation. The role of Parliament includes the promotion of the values of human dignity, equality, non-racialism, non-sexism, the supremacy of the Constitution, universal adult suffrage, and a multi-party system of democratic government. It upholds our citizens' political rights, the basic values and principles governing public administration, and oversees the implementation of constitutional imperatives. It provides legislation that prevents or prohibits unfair discrimination, and holds members of the executive accountable, collectively and individually. Parliament also provides multi-party parliamentary committees to have oversight of all security services in a manner determined by the national legislation or the rules and orders of Parliament. Parliament further facilitates public involvement in the legislative and other processes, and in its committees, has the responsibility to promote the principles of cooperative government and intergovernmental relations, and ratifies international agreements which are binding on the Republic. Parliament as an organ of state, through legislative and other measures, must assist and protect the courts and state institutions, to ensure the independence, impartiality, dignity, accessibility, and effectiveness of these. This mandate of Parliament determines its reason for existence. It is the origin of the institution, and is based on the provisions of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, Act 108 of 1996, establishing Parliament and setting out the functions it performs. Thank you for watching this video.